So this is The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. And I'm just going to get into it because it messed me up so bad. And I finished it at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I know my whole day is about to be messed up. So I'm going to just make it so I can just talk about it and get it out of my system. So this is The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. It is about an alcoholic priest in 1930s Mexico being chased down by this atheist lieutenant who was on his way to exterminate the last of the Catholic clergy in Mexico. And you would think that this would just be a typical, hunting down a man story, but it goes into much further than that. This is basically the existential crisis of a priest who is grappling with the fact that he is not worthy of being a martyr to his cause, that he is not a good priest. He calls himself a bad priest because he's committed all these sins from what did he do? He did a lot. So he's an alcoholic, first of all. He had a child with a woman out in the forest that he hasn't taken care of. And ultimately, he just doesn't feel worthy of being, he doesn't feel worthy of being sanctified in any way, especially by these people who are in Mexico and they haven't seen a priest in years because of the new group that's in charge of the country, because they've killed all the other priests. And there's only one other priest that's still alive, but they allowed him to live um, because he decided to marry, which is against what you're supposed to do as a Catholic priest. Anyway, so this priest is running around all through Mexico. He's trying to escape, but all the while he's, like I said, he's feeling like he's not worthy of being protected by the people who are constantly sacrificing themselves so that he can continue to live. Meanwhile, this lieutenant, who is probably one of the most relatable and messed up villains I've read in a while, this lieutenant is entirely devoted to killing this priest because, in his mind, it's basically the same as killing everything that was wrong with his own childhood. He grew up in a very Christian household in a very Christian society, and he grew up poor. But being told by the Catholic priest who lived in all this splendor and grandeur and stuff, he was constantly told, well, if you suffer here on earth, then you'll have peace in heaven and your suffering will be worthwhile. And the lieutenant was always like, that's some bullshit. Like he even knew that as a kid. He said that was some bullshit. Um, so now, as an adult, now that he has the power to go out and prove his own philosophy that this world does not have God in it, that people should not wait for heaven, they should have their heaven here on earth. His entire motive is to eliminate this priest and help that philosophy come to life. And throughout this book, as you see the two of them kind of not chase each other, but as you see the two of them kind of uh, run after each other in a way. The priest is running after his own life, trying to save his own life, and the lieutenant is coming after him to force put him out of that. You really get this really beautiful expose of what it means to be made in God's image. Because the priest, of course, he's listening to people's confessions. They're all scrambling to him, like, can we please give you our confession? He's listening to their confessions, but all the while, he doesn't have anyone to listen to his own. So he's still grappling with the guilt that he is unable to unload onto anyone else. And it's funny because the priest is trying to escape, he's trying not to die. Um, but no matter where he goes, there's always someone in need of some godly assistance. So if somebody wants to give confession because they think they're about to die, and he'll be like, okay, I have to go and listen to them. It's my duty as a priest. But he says that the only reason he's still alive right now is because of his own sin of pride. He decided that staying back while everyone else was fleeing would make him kind of like the strongest priest. So he would be rewarded in some way by God, or he would be seen as like this great priest, this great man, if he stayed behind in the face of adversity to help people still have God in a place that was growing, in a country that was growing increasingly atheist. And now he's kind of left just by himself. He's seen that his pride has taken him to a place where he is lonely, where he doesn't feel worthy of having this title of being some great martyr or some great man. And he's all alone, basically. All he really has is this guilt that accompanies him everywhere. And I think the saddest part of this book is that the priest, all the while, is so human. Like, he's not so much afraid of death, really. He's afraid of the pain that comes with death because if they catch him, they're going to shoot him. And the whole time, he's like overthinking what it's going to feel like to feel the bullets pass through his heart. And he's terrified of that. And he's also terrified on an existential level what it'll mean when he dies? What was the point of it all? What was the point of those people dying for him? If he'll even get to heaven, what is he going to say to God? Because he feels like he's going there empty-handed because he wasn't able to confess any of his own sins. And he also feels like there was no point in him surviving, especially when that survival first came from a desperation for pride. Um, on the other hand, this lieutenant, uh, his his whole thing is that he really just does not care. He's going to kill this priest no matter what it takes. He gets to a point where there's actually another guy they're hunting down. It's this American gangster. They call him the Americano or the Gringo. And the chief of police is like, "Hey, we should probably catch this guy because he's out here murdering people." And the lieutenant is like, "Murder is not as bad as being a priest and lying to people about waiting to get to heaven to stop suffering. So I'm going to go after this priest and I'm going to do what I have to do. And I'm going to take hostages from villages to get them to talk. I'm going to, kill people if they don't tell me where he is. I'm going to do whatever it takes." He basically just doesn't care. He doesn't give a, he doesn't care. He's going to kill this priest no matter what it takes. And yet, the thing between the lieutenant and the priest that they both have in common is that they both care about the generations to be left afterward. They both care about what the people to come after them, the children to come after them, because the priest has his own child and the lieutenant interacts with the child who are both growing up in a society where the clergy and God are being continuously pushed out. And they both care about whether or not the Spirit of God will have anything to do with the way they grow up. Everyone in this book falls into two camps. So it's either they see the way the world is, and so they must believe in God, or they see the way the world is and they can't believe in God. And the people in that last camp are like the lieutenant. They all believe that, if the world is so horrible, there's no way that God could be in it. So I'm just gonna have to make my own way. I'm gonna have to make the world in my own image to make it a better place. The priest, of course, is on the other hand, he still believes in spite of everything that God exists, that God, even though he doesn't understand why he works the way he does, he still believes that God is here for humanity and that he can help humanity get to that point. The final point of this book, I think, that really stuck out to me is all the terrible ways in which love can hurt. And it's not so much like, oh, like my boyfriend broke up with me and that's like how love hurts. It's more like how love hurts because of the motives behind it. So the author describes, somebody drowning their child out of love, or, God allowing people to die for a greater purpose of some greater generational reward to come afterwards. And basically, it kind of was implying that love and wrath are kind of in the same category. And that's kind of terrifying when you consider, if we think about how the universe kind of still goes on, no matter what's happening to us personally, you could have the worst thing happen to you or the best thing happen to you, but things are just going to happen. And the world is going to keep going on no matter what. So, with that information, how do you counter faith? How do you think about faith? How do you keep faith in a world that constantly seems to not either not care about you at all or to just completely want you dead? And that's what the priest is grappling with throughout this whole story. And I think the way this book messed me up afterwards, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but the way this book messed me up in the end, it just had me thinking about, what does it mean that, everyone on this planet, no matter how good or bad they are, is made in God's image? Is that a reflection on the world affecting us? Is that, is there a little bit of God's love and God's wrath in each of us? I don't know. And it just made me think about the way that I consider my relationship with God and how other people consider their relationship with me. Do they see God when they see me? Do I see God when they see them? The priest even sees God in this lieutenant and the countless people who might either help or betray him. It was just really interesting. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it, really. I gave this The Power and Glory a 5 out of 5 stars. I think it's a great examination of humans in the face of God or in the absence of God. And I think even the title is actually taken from the Lord's Prayer, The Power and the Glory, which reflects on what God has some power of both his love and his wrath. And that's another thing about this book. This book is full of teeth. There's a lot of references to teeth, either decaying or falling out, or people don't have any teeth, or they have really nice teeth, and it demonstrates how poor or how rich they are. And I guess if I wanted to become like a total English lit person and say the teeth represent faith in some way, if faith is the way that you take in the world, or faith is the way that you digest the world, then people without teeth are more likely to have trouble, um, or more likely to have trouble like accepting the world for what it is. And people with teeth can actually find some way to cooperate or accept the world the way it is. I don't know. That's me really reading into it. But I noticed that there were teeth mentioned at least 50 times throughout this book. Um, but yeah, ultimately, like, I really enjoyed this book. I would probably go into a deeper analysis of it, but I'm not an English lit major. I'm an international affairs major. And you know what? That's okay. Um, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening to another unedited book rant.